Looks like it's okay now. I don't know what happened. I went in and out. Can you hear me all right?
Yep, all good.
Let me just switch a couple things real quick here, and then we'll go live, okay?
Ready to go.
I've just got a new computer, gentlemen. This is Martin, and you can hear me on audio, but not on video. So I'm going to switch to my phone so I can be seen.
Okay.
I don't see Gabe here yet.
Yeah, he just sent me a message, so he should be coming on in a moment.
Okay, because he was probably having the same problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I just went back in the same way I did prior.
Here he is.
Gabe is coming on.
Okay.
Hey, Gabe.
Hello, everybody. Okay, since we're up against the time, we're going to go ahead and go live. I'll do an introduction, and then I'm going to go ahead and hand it to you, Frank.
Yep.
And then we'll...
Gabe, is your audio working?
Test. Is it working?
Oh, yeah, okay,
great.
good.
And after what we will do, Gabe will go first as an outline. I will do then the pitch, and Martin will participate as a kind of reference in between.
Okay, so you want me to hand it to Gabe at the onset?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, welcome everybody. A little technical difficulty, but it'll be fine. Here we go. Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today in this different, unusual late hour here. So thanks for making time for us. We had a little technical difficulty there, but we're with you now. I see the room's populating. So as you know, we can't hear or see you. We know you're there, but we encourage you to ask your questions as they come to mind. We're super happy to once again have Contact Organics to go a little deeper than last time on the opportunity. Lots of news and interesting things that you'll hear in the program today. So if there's anybody that you know of that might be interested in or benefit from what you hear today, just feel free to know that you can contact Frank and company and John Mark directly post-webinar. We'll make sure we catalyze that to happen. So with that, we have some really interesting guests with us today who have some limited time, but we're going to have them go first. Again, thank you for joining us this afternoon, and we're so happy that you did. So with that, Gabe, welcome. Please take it away.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'll just start by giving you a brief idea of who I am and what I'm involved with, and then some context as to why I'm so excited about Contact Organics and the product they have available. So I'm a lifelong farmer rancher near Bismarck, North Dakota. I have a 6,000 acre ranch here, grow a variety of different cash crops, cover crops, and livestock. 7 years ago, my wife and I turned the ranch over to our son, and I really have a passion for regenerative agriculture, and I understand that farmers and ranchers cannot implement what they do not know. And they're not being educated as to these time-tested ecological principles that drive regenerative agriculture. So I had been working with Howard Gleager for a number of years as they were developing these products. They were using my farm as a test site for some of those products. And on the side, I started, along with Dr. Alan Williams, a consulting business 7 years ago called Understanding Ag. And Understanding Ag is focused on helping move farmers and ranchers, businesses, supply chains down the regenerative path. Little did I know, in 7 short years, we've grown from 0 acres to well over 34 million acres across North America, England, Ireland. We're by far the largest regenerative consulting company in the world. And so we're on thousands of farms and ranches every year. And we see the real need for a product such as this. Besides that, we have a nonprofit called Soil Health Academy, whose sole mission is to educate farmers, ranchers, and industry. We're working with a lot of brands, and I'll get into that in a moment, but we want to educate them as to how to move down the regenerative path. Now, we have seen an explosion in regenerative agriculture. I tell people I've seen more interest in the past 3 years than I did in the previous 27 years combined. And where a lot of that interest is coming from is from brands and supply chains. These companies want to know where they can source regeneratively grown and raised products. And they're doing that for a number of reasons. One of them is for marketing reasons, because they want to tell the story of farmers and ranchers that are producing these products. But they also have to answer their ESG concerns. And that's driving a lot of their demand. Now, besides that, we're seeing a real uptick from consumers who want to know where they can source products that are not only positive for the environment, but have a positive impact on their health. And I think this fits exactly into the product we're going to talk about today, because my staff and I deal every day with chemicals, with herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, etc. How do we remove those from production agriculture, okay? Or at least lessen them to a large extent, the harmful ones. So I think it plays right into where we're at. I really see a demand for this. I get asked every day, our consultants get asked every day, what are our options? What can we do? How do we get away from these toxic chemicals and move down a path that is truly regenerative? So I'm happy to answer any questions, but perhaps we'll wait till after you talk, Frank.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay.
Gabe, do you have some time to stick with us?
I sure can. I plan on sticking with the whole
Great.
time.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, Frank. You want to take it away, Frank?
Yes, please.
Take your time, no problem.
Yeah, just set up. Can you see that?
Yes, looks perfect.
Okay, great. Arthur, thank you very much for inviting us to the Family Office Insights webinar. Great to be here. Love it.
You're very
Gabe's
welcome.
Great. Thank you so much for introduction. We have on the panel too, it's not just Gabe, it's Jean-Marc. He's from Arda Capital, our financial advisor. We have Martin Crompton from Union Grove Farm too, as a customer who can update you briefly to what we do. Let me introduce you to Contact Organics and our breakthrough innovation in non-toxic weed control. The Contact Organics business is an Australian business. Our background is in health science. We actually have developed over years colloidal supplements and colloidal systems. Where this all came from, we actually developed originally some cream. To get the cream better into skin, we used the delivery technology. This delivery technology we combined with a kind of weed killer, a natural weed killer kind of formulation, and had, as we sprayed, amazing outcomes. So this natural kind of weed killer quite often don't work so well because they can't get into the plant. We, over the last years, have developed a proprietary delivery technology that makes these natural active ingredients bioavailable and significantly enhances their performance. So we're not just getting cream into the skin, we're getting weed killer, natural weed killer into the plant. They break the cells, they dry and desiccate the plant and control the weeds. Our Firehawk bioherbicides, being the resultant products, they work. They're used by leading customers and are also beneficial for soil health. Gabe's whole movement on regenerative farming is all about building farms up back from the soil Therefore, our product being part in that kind of process on desiccating crop and improving the soil is a huge benefit. This benefit has been validated independently by leading American university like the University of Missouri. So what we're doing now, I will talk about today about non-toxic weed control, but we as a company, we take this further. We're creating multi-product platforms through optimizing delivery technology and applying in different applications. The non-toxic weed control product, of course, fits very well into chemical herbicides being a major market. Global sales of chemical herbicides is currently running at $43 billion. We're spending $43 billion to kill weeds. These chemical herbicides inherently, and that's the way they operate, they're toxins. Therefore, as we spray billions of gallons of these chemical herbicide spray mixtures to kill weeds, we're not only killing weeds, we're harming the environment. It has a huge impact on biodiversity, on the soil biology and waterways. As we produce food and the food enters then our body, it also can damage our health. There's a lot of debate at the moment about chronic diseases and issues with our health being linked to lack of nutrient-dense food. We're eating food that have no minerals anymore in there because they're taken out and complexed out by chemical herbicides. There's at the moment a significant litigation going on that you're probably all aware of against Bayer and Roundup. The 150,000 people sued them and have been awarded impact that they had lymphoma cancer. So it's $10 billion has been settled so far, but not even the future claims have been touched on. So there's a huge demand in that market, as Gabe highlighted, for a non-toxic product for weed control that works. So our bioherbicide, being a breakthrough innovation in non-toxic weed control, we're delivering significant positive impact on our environment, on the biodiversity, on food chains and public health. The way the product works, being a contact herbicide and desiccating plants, we focus on 40% of that global $43 billion market. So our target market is $17 billion worth. The target markets include regenerative agriculture, as Gabe just highlighted. Hence, we're really suitable to desiccate naturally crops, improving the soils, enhancing the whole system. There are a lot of benefits in there. The second market is crop desiccation, is all about desiccating or drying out food before it's being harvested. And there, of course, potatoes or beans or rapeseed oil and so on comes to mind as a huge market. Vineyards, and Martin will talk briefly about vineyards later on. We're very active. We're already working some of the biggest vineyards in the world in Australia, but already we entered the market in America for vineyards too. Horticulture, which is almonds, it's potatoes, it's food production, is a very important part. A lot of people are getting so concerned about the public health impact. Therefore, one of our markets is municipality and landscaping. And of course, home and garden, we spray a lot of pesticides and a lot of people looking for non-toxic alternatives. All these target markets our product is most suitable for, and they add up to that huge number of $18 billion. But all individual markets are already multi-billion-dollar markets that we're targeting. This is my third technology startup business. That's my space. And I really learned the hard way over the years. With an environmental product, I've never been in a bad first meeting. Everyone loves the concept. But in order to achieve sales, you really have to tackle the aspects of performance in the application and price. And that has been our very much focus in the last 2-3 years. So if you look, chemical herbicides are inherently toxic. That's the way they operate. That's the way they function. But of course, they're low cost. They're often poisonous type of material, and you sprinkle around, you use only very little. That's the reason why it's used just in such enormous kind of quantity. If you look at non-toxic or low toxicity products like bioherbicides, you end up in a different scenario. Toxicity is low or not, but price is very high because they're contact herbicides. So that's the space we're operating in. Because of our delivery technology and therefore higher efficacy, we started at a lower pricing point versus the rest. And with our work on formulation and application development, we have now shifted the paradigm into a cost structure that is approaching now chemical herbicides. No other non-toxic bioherbicide anywhere in the world operates at this performance and cost structures. It's an absolutely unique position to be in. Therefore, our go-to-market strategy based on our high-performance products is leveraged by strong branding, marketing, and distribution. Our approach is to convert market leaders. Typically, market leaders set the scene. They are most difficult to convert, but as they convert, the rest of the market will follow their lead. And here we have several already, and I put some examples in there. Harvard University products used at the Augusta National Golf Course, regenerative farming, White Oak Pastures, Union Grove, of course, with Martin's Group, Park City, and other kind of lots of places. So far, we have achieved $1 million sales, but we have just received full EPA approval and our market rating can go to market now. To give you an idea what people think about us, it's Harvard University, Jason McKay, the landscape supervisors. He allowed us a testimonial. He states here, we have used Contact Organics bioherbicide on our campus for more than 3 years. It works better than Roundup. What a great kind of support in Harvard making that statement. So with these customers that we have, we go through a very structured sales development process. The customers that we're working with, they're going through 6 stages, from identifying opportunities to contacting them and clarifying, refining the opportunity, then doing trials, doing validations, negotiating commercial outcomes, and getting into sales. So in these kind of different stages, we have now with customers that we know well, we're working with. And Gabe just mentioned his numbers of customers too in regenerative farming. They're all looking for non-toxic crop desiccation solutions. We're adding up in total $115 million sales pipeline that we're working on towards converting into sales. This is not going overnight, but one after the other customer project goes over the line, and that translates into our financial projections over the next 5 years. We're moving towards a $100 million sales revenue business. Our business is quite unique here, that the products that we have are actually very high margin products. Based on average kind of sales and distribution channels, our gross profit is 60% of the products. Our net profit angles towards 36%. So it's a very high profitability business. The leadership team that's delivering the business has a huge amount of experience of delivering such kind of technology into the global markets. Myself, I worked a lot in general management. I'm a science background person. This is my 3rd technology startup business. I've done it already. I set up 12 business in 12 countries around the world and have a real successful track record in global commercialization of proprietary environmental technology. Gabe mentioned already our lead manager, Howard Vlieger in the US market. He comes back from farming background, set up businesses, and is a real expertise center in regenerative farming and in soil health. We have a CFO, Rekha Bambani, is a very experienced CFO and company secretary. With us, they're working already a lot of other people. We're interviewing at the moment to bring in more lead people to accelerate the business, and that's why we will raise some money, which I will talk about. The non-executive director, Joe and Jeffrey, have a lot of experience in consumer-oriented businesses and manufacturing business in chemical counterproduction. The team that's on the slide that I'm particularly proud of are the members of our advisory board. You just heard Gabe talking about the Department of Understanding Ag. he is the most experienced person in regenerative farming that I'm really aware of in the US and globally. He's accompanied by a very high profile educator in regenerative farming, Ray Archuleta, who's on our advisory board. Reed Smeeder and Don Huber are leading scientists in plant pathology, in plant science, in soil science, and a lot of studies we're doing with Reed down at University of Missouri. Dave Swartz is very experienced in distribution channels of chemicals and herbicides and pesticides in the American market. That's what he has set up over the last 30, 40 years. Kathleen Halal is an original investor. He's now a sales director. She has a huge experience in children's health advocacy, driving change in US community, changing whole cities over to non-toxic approach. So we have a fantastic team, and we're bringing in more people on now as we go to market. See, this year has been a very, very important year. It's not an overnight success. We have been working on this for 5 years, but this year, a lot of things are coming together. The ticket to play in this game is regulatory approvals. In the US is a registration of US EPA. And after 4 years of processing through regulatory approval process, hooray, we achieved the unconditional US EPA registrations, which allows us to sell our products in the US in all states. And that is a huge, huge step. In parallel, we have now developed a so-called super concentrate that delivers superior cost structure and is already organic certified. It's getting into the market in 3/4 of a year time. We as a technology firm, intellectual property is critical. We have patents, 3 family patents, and the first core patents got granted this year. This year, we're moving forward with now the unconditional EPA registration in place. We're going to market launch. Containers have been shipped to the US. They're sitting in our warehouse. We're ready to launch. We will ramp up US sales as full registration takes effect in all states. We're expanding our US sales force and marketing team, and that's the reason why we're now in the process of raising $10 million funds to accelerate the business development. So we're raising into the Australian holding company $10 million. We expect at $40 million valuation post money. Our cornerstone investor, that is NunPower. They're supplying Nikes and Adidas with glues around the world. That's a $600 million business. Our cornerstone investor, you have the opportunity to join them and invest into the business. How are we using the funds? The great thing here is the company is fully set up and operational. We have global supply chains. We have the first people on the ground. We're getting sales. Now it's accelerating sales. So we will utilize $1 to $2 million to accelerate the sales through investment into an expanding sales force. We have already people interviewed. They're ready to come on board in the US as well as in Australia. Working capital and minor CapEx is used for business growth. In general, our CapEx is minimal. We need just $100,000 to set up more filling line to achieve $100 million sales revenue. So we have minimal CapEx that we require, but we want to set up a US manufacturing capacity that for a particular agricultural application, we can blend the products in the US and therefore have very short supply chains. And the money for working capital will be used to bring the business to profitability. What we want to do, and we will spend $2 to $4 million on that, is significantly enhance the marketing branding. We have a wonderful story. There's a huge demand. There's so much interest, but the story has to be conveyed and communicated, and that costs money, and hence that's where we want to invest. Europe will ultimately be a major market because they're already banning these kind of products and looking at all alternatives. And we will spend money on Canadian, European regulatory approval to get into market there. Our costs being brought down through a charge spraying system. We will spend money on application development and commercialization of that technology. So we're market ready. We will spend the money to accelerate the business, not to set up the business. That work all has been done. So coming and wrapping up here, we can offer a unique offering. Contact Organics is market ready. Our sales forecast of $100 million will be delivered over the next 5 years. And this $100 million in the markets that we're operating is less than 0.6% of our target markets. It's minute within the opportunity that we have. Our business being a high margin business with limited capital equipment needs, we offer a unique investment opportunity that generates high financial return and positive, measurable social environmental impact. Thank you very much.
So, Martin, do you have time to stick with us for a little bit?
Of course.
The only reason I'm asking is if it's okay with you, Jean-Marc, I'd love to hear your story about how this evolved for you and your view on this whole thing. And I'm saying that because I've heard it before and I thought it was rather compelling.
So Ardor Capital was the first boutique investment banking firm focused on climate sustainability back in 2002. We've done over probably 120, 130 transactions in the general space, agriculture being part of that. Frank and I tend to like to work longer term with companies and sometimes repeat projects or adventures. And that's the case with Frank. We worked together almost 10 years ago on a bioplastics deal that actually a company that did well for investors. And when he called me up and he said, look, I have something else to work on, initially I was a bit skeptical, but as I saw I'm an engineer by training and a former recovering arbitrage trader in the bond and derivative market. So I always like to see when 1 + 1 = 3 or more and where there's leverage. And I think, everybody can relate to food. Everybody can relate to the understanding of eating healthy food. It's not necessarily cheap to eat healthy, but I thought that the impact, the profitable impact that a successful delivery of this solution to market with very high margins, with very low CapEx required to scale, and with the patented technology that ostensibly builds really strong moat around anyone else trying to access the same bioherbicide market using a delivery mechanism with environmentally benign ingredients. This colloidal chemistry delivery technology, it really puts up a lot of barriers so that investors can feel comfortable and get on board with at this kind of early-ish stage and help it scale and grow, and that it can scale and grow faster than any potential competitors can come in and try to replicate or steal market share without violating patents. Of course, it's expensive to get patents and even more expensive to defend them, but it's still a nice barrier to have. In addition to that, I thought that the combination of the technology being deployed affecting positively almost every constituent except for the guys that sell chemical herbicides, those being farmers who can over time, and Gabe and Martin can speak to this even way more eloquently than I can, but if farmers can adopt this and it doesn't cost them an arm and a leg, and they can see over time that it's an investment to help to improve their most valuable asset, which is their soil, not dirt, but soil, and improve the soil and improve crop yields and improve their economics, right? They should be and will be on board. And I'm not just saying farmers. I mean, it's all the 7 different target markets, which actually, interestingly, have different rationale for adopting, which are not necessarily the same. So that's also a risk mitigating factor, that it's not a one-trick pony. If farmers don't adopt it, the company goes under. So I always like to see risk mitigation because it's always fun to count dollars when you have a home run, but risk mitigation is critical. Don't lose money and then talk about how much you can make. So I thought that was present here, and I think that Martin and Gabe will speak to some of the sort of farming, vineyard, or regen aspects of that. And yeah, I mean, that's probably the best I can say about this. And so we're happy to have been working with Frank to grow the company over the last year and a half. And now that we've broken through the EPA barrier, we're looking forward to having the same battle in Europe and Canada and maybe even Brazil. But I think given our track record, by that time, it'll be a lot easier and faster, hopefully.
Great, thanks. Super, super helpful. Frank, you want to go to Martin now?
Yeah, please. Absolutely.
Okay. Welcome, Martin. Please take it away.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Martin Crompton. I'm the operations director at the Union Grove Farm Vineyards in the USA. We've got pretty aggressive plans to expand out to 1,000 acres in the next 8 years, which will take us to be the biggest vineyard out of about 4,000 on the East Coast. And our aim is to take on the big California vineyards. In order to do that, we've decided to focus all our energies and efforts foundationally in regenerative agriculture. The single biggest challenge I face for our operation, as all farmers face, is weeds. As a regenerative farmer, my options are limited to biological amendments, or biological herbicides, should I say. I actually attend every year. There's thousands of conferences that have sprung up all over the States now and globally behind regenerative agriculture. As Gabe mentioned, it's a growing phenomenon that's going to go hockey stick in expansion over the next 5 years. The best conference that I attend every year is in Arizona or Nebraska, the alternate. It's called the Regen Nexus Summit. It's an invite-only conference where some of the top farmers, regenerative farmers in the USA and Canada, some of the best educators and leaders in the movement attend. The number one subject, the number one focus subject that kicks off that 3-day meeting every year is weeds. And how do we address it? How are we able to address that biologically and not using the chemical herbicides that have been around for the decades now? The key to that, which Frank touched on in his presentation, is the need for high efficacy allied to cost affordability. Without those two combined, and that's why Gabe, I'm sure, got on board with this as well, you haven't got a solution. And that's where we've been waiting for the latter part to come in. There's been some reasonably decent bioherbicides on the market, not always on the same performance level as the chemicals. What we've seen with Contact Organics here at Union Grove Farm over the last 3 years has pleased us on both. Well, initially on the first front, the efficacy, the impact of how it's dealt with the weeds challenges that we've got here has been excellent. We started off with a 2-acre trial. We moved last year to a 10-acre trial. And on the strength of that, I work for a very, very astute investor VC, one of the most successful in the USA, who's bankrolling this operation. And he allowed me to roll this across our entire current 75 acres. So we've put a substantial investment behind Contact Organics already. And the delivery against the weed situation has been excellent. What has put a smile on my face, thanks to putting a smile on my owner's face, is the fact that Frank is now bringing in this Firehawk super concentrate. That suddenly ticks the second box. This is a game changer as far as we're concerned, as far as how we're able to apply at the depth that we want to, with the efficacy that we want to, but also bring in that cost affordability. Gabe Brown, who kicked off the meeting today, I regard as not just one of the leaders, but the leader of the regenerative movement. He's known not just nationally, but globally. A phenomenal guy who walks his talk. He's been doing this for 15 years and has set up an organization in Understanding Ag that is preeminent on the planet. Not just the fact that he's tied into 32 million acres of regenerative agriculture now. Anybody who's anybody in this movement knows Gabe and respects Gabe. And we deploy one of his top vineyard operators to come in and guide us through our evolution with regenerative agriculture. And he's been exceptionally impressed with this product as well. And he said when he joined forces with us, because we scour the globe looking for the best of the best solutions to plug into our vineyard operation. He said, if I can show him that we've got success with a product or a service or equipment, he'll plug them into his armory to sell into his customers as well. So there's a lot of interest with the connections I've got both on the East Coast and the West Coast. And now the key to it is tying those two factors together. Gabe spoke to this, and I'll just say this and I'll finish. The movement is going to be driven by three entities: the food companies, the big food, the global multi-billion-dollar food companies who are moving into this space, primarily because of climate disruption, climate change, and the Paris protocols that they've committed into by 2030. But they're also now, and this is why it's of interest to the second party, the big food retailers are being pushed by the consumers, not the grey hairs like me, but the boomers, sorry, the Generation Z and the millennials. They ask questions that we never did. We drove the market down a price route. They're asking questions about how you treat your animals, how you treat your staff. What are you doing as far as spraying chemicals on the land? Does it affect the waterways? Does it affect the oceans? Does it affect the climate? These are the people who put dollars into the big food companies and the big food retailers. They are all gearing up to switch out and transition upwards of 100 million acres up to 2030. And I'm sure Gabe would be confident that that is the start of a long-term process to move the market globally into the only solution that we've got to address climate change and to address the food issues that are driving a lot of the health issues in the world as well. Regenerative agriculture breeds regenerative crops which have got high nutrient density. No chemical residues, high nutrient density. A key component of being able to be successful regenerative farming is a bioherbicide at a good cost price. So I'm very proud to be an early adopter of Frank and Howard's product, worked very closely with both of these gentlemen over the last 3 years. And we're very confident, having tested this against virtually every other major bioherbicide on the market, that we've picked the winner. And I'm very grateful to be invited onto here to say that today.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. That's super helpful. Gabe, did you want to weigh in before I ask a question?
No, Martin summed it up very well there. Have to forgive me. I've got the flu and I'm really under the weather here today, so I'm not too talkative, but I'll weigh in if needed.
Yeah, you would never know it. So it seems to me that, and I got a sense from the audience that they're thinking this as well. You can measure crop productivity, you can measure how the weeds are killed, and you've mentioned a couple times the drivers that are causing the big food retailers to change their story. And just anecdotally, you can't even eat a tomato anymore unless it comes from your garden because it doesn't taste like anything and it probably doesn't have any nutrition value, right? So how does one measure the benefit of having regen ag and contact organics involved in terms of the real nutritional value of a product?
Okay, now I'll weigh in.
Gabe, that is yours.
There is another company that I'm involved with that we founded named Regenified, and Regenified's mission is to verify what these regenerative farmers and ranchers are doing. And then we take it through the supply chain, because the supply chain, as I said earlier, is looking for these regeneratively grown and raised products. But what separates us then, we have an agreement with Utah State University, Dr. Stefan Van Vliet, who's using a mass spectrometer. He can identify over 2,300 different phytonutrient compounds. We're testing, we go on and identify regenerative farms and ranches, no matter what products they're growing. Martin's Vineyard is one, then we'll compare that to a neighboring farm or ranch that is quote unquote under the conventional model using these caustic chemicals, growing the same type of, it doesn't matter whether it's a fruit, a vegetable, a grain, a pastured protein. A team of scientists comes in, they look at soil microbiology, they look at species diversity above ground, they look at insects, they look at birds, wildlife, they test the plants, they test the animals, and then they test the final food product. What they're finding, and there is a peer-reviewed paper there is a paper that's under peer review at the moment, significant changes. And I can let you know this much. What they're seeing is up to a 69% increase in vitamins, up to a 239% increase in the fatty acid profile, beneficial fatty acids. They're seeing up to 67% reduction in oxidative stress markers. So in other words, those compounds that add to, for instance, heart attacks, cancer, etc. It is just absolutely amazing. So it's out there, we're doing it, and right now we're assembling the largest regenerative agriculture study on nutrient density in the world. So this is very exciting. And that's why I think this Firehawk and contact organics is so important, because what we're finding out, many of the herbicides, pesticides, fungicides that are being used today obviously are detrimental, as Martin said, to soil biology, as Frank said. And what Dr. Van Vliet and his team are finding out is the array of these phytonutrient compounds is directly related to the diversity of that microbiology in the soil.
Yeah.
So when this gets out, so to speak, and consumers become educated, and the brands are going to demand it, because they'll have a product that they can truly say is nutrient dense.
Mm-hmm.
Sky's the limit.
Yeah, it seems like the obvious. Look, I'm on the extreme, so I'm not a good example. Like we pay attention to everything that we eat. We're trying not to eat stuff that is toxic or otherwise. And, it's problematic because you can't always find what you want. But, it would be really interesting if that evolved to not just a certification, because oftentimes that's bullshit. But, somebody put a stamp on it. But if it actually said, okay, here's the nutrient, I'm not going to use the right words, nutrient rich level, like it's at 80%, 90%, compared to, you could look at 2 tomatoes and say, okay, I'm not going to eat that one. It might look pretty, but it has no nutritional value. I'm going to put calories in my body that have no benefit, right?
It reminds me
that's the long-term goal. And realize, my whole passion is how do we get regenerative ag adopted wide scale across the world to change ecosystem function, positively affect human health. The way to do that is through human health, because healthcare costs are through the roof, incidences and all these chronic diseases are through the roof. Yep. I think a big part of the answer is found in what's being presented today.
It's healthcare is the number 2, or let's say disease treatment, not healthcare, but disease treatment in the US is the number 2 contributor to our budget deficit after defense. Everything you guys are saying reminds me of a saying I'm hearing more and more, Gabe, recently: make food your medicine before medicine has to become your food.
Exactly. Yeah. So true. I mean,
that was actually stated by Hippocrates in 400 BC. This is why it's been around forever. We're not inventing anything new here. Gabe will say this. This is indigenous 15,000-year-old farming methodologies. It goes back to the dawn of time as a species. We're coming full circle. We're finally learning ourselves from our own experience of ill health, chronic disease that we've had to face either ourselves or in our families. And the root cause, literal root cause, is the foods that we eat, which are calorifically dense, but nutrient empty. Yeah. And then we put them through highly processed, industrialized manufacturing as well. But the root, that the foundation, this is what I got taught from an early age by masters like Gabe and the people now that who work within his organization who are taking us to the next level. It's all about the soil, not dirt, as John Mark said, it's the soil. And the soil is dependent on the life force. There's billions of teeming little life forces that's in the soil that when it interacts with the plant will give it all the nutrients it needs. Not just the NPKs, but 70 plus different nutrients and micronutrients, which means the plant's healthy, it can ward off disease, it can ward off pests, and then all that health, that phytonutrient health, goes into our bodies when we eat that food. All the regenerative food can deliver that. And a big part, again, circling back to contact organic, that is absolutely dependent on that is, believe it or not, fungal matter. Probably the most intelligent life force on the planet isn't the human race, it's fungal. Yeah. That is, we've already got a worldwide network. It's a cerebral brain network underneath the surface of our feet that's intrinsically linked with healthy plants in healthy soil. Chemical fertilizers, chemical herbicides kill that off. What really got us excited in the early stages with contact organics was the ability not just to do no harm by not putting toxic chemicals into the soil, but also for it to desiccate that weed and drive the sugars out of the weed into the soil to feed the microbiota. We've got an in-house science team here that are going to be doing DNA sequencing to prove that out as well. That's a very intricate part. And the last thing I'll say from my side, I will eventually morph from being the vineyard operations director, setting up the organization initially to move into strategy and sales and business development marketing. It will be aimed at the consumer. My entire strategy for the consumer is driven by the three things that are the key driving dynamics for purchasing food. Number one, price. We're living in inflationary times, so price is really important, which gets back to the need to find bio solutions that are efficacious, but also economically viable. The second and the third things that drive decisions for purchasing food are taste and health. Health is symbiotically linked to food. And until we realize that and drive into that, we will have this huge drain on our economic society, and we'll have an ever more increasing chronic disease and illnesses. So this is a really important product. It's not the silver bullet. It forms part of the silver bullet, which is regenerative agriculture. And you'll find anybody involved in regenerative agriculture, again, thanks to this gentleman I'm proud to be alongside today, are passionate about making a difference. Anybody who invests in this company is making a difference, not just trustfully in your bank balance, but you'll be making a difference in people out for your families and for the people that you buy your food for. It's a really important cusp that we're on the edge of here. There's an abyss in front of us, and regenerative agriculture can take us over that abyss.
Let me add one thing. We have a 2-year soil study analysis done by University of Missouri that we can share with you if after the call you want to read it. We have a slide in our deck too that talks about the summary of that. But one very specific, and I like to get specific and pragmatic, and maybe Gabe can comment on this as well as Frank, is the idea of contact organics enabling green planting. And there's both a soil impact, but there's an economic impact for farmers on green planting. If you guys don't mind mentioning how contact organics enables that, that might be an interesting anecdote.
Sure, I'll start and then Frank can fill in. Take where I'm at here in North Dakota. Okay, we have a very short growing season, 110 days. So when we're talking about green planting, what we're talking about is, in my environment, having a fall seeded biennial crop such as cereal rye, hairy vetch. That will be seeded in the fall. It'll grow. It'll cycle carbon, thus helping mitigate climate change. It'll feed soil biology. It'll convert inorganic fractions of nutrients into organic, hold it there to be cycled by biology the next season. The issue is, in our short season environments, the only way to terminate those covers without using a caustic herbicide is with a crop roll. In order for a crop roller to work, that cover crop has to be in anthesis. In other words, it has to be already headed out. We don't have enough growing season here. By the time a cover crop gets to anthesis, it's mid-June. We get frost here early September. I can't get a cash crop to maturity. What this product will allow us to do is to go in and terminate that cover crop in a timely manner, or we can even plant into that living cover and then terminate it before that our cash crop germinates and grows. That is a game changer in many of the northern environments on into Canada, etc.
Does that by definition give you an additional growing season? Additional crop?
Well, we have to realize what's the missing link in agriculture? It's carbon. Okay, I tell people I've been on thousands of farms all over the world. What's limiting on all of them is carbon, because 30 to 75% of the carbon that was once in the soil is now in the atmosphere. And the reason for that is we grow cash crops for a short period of time and then don't grow anything else. This will allow us to have living plants longer throughout the year, pulling that carbon out of the atmosphere, putting it back into the soil cycle to be consumed by biology that fuels the whole system. So this is a game changer.
Yeah, I see. What's going on in Mexico as it relates to contact organics market?
Arthur, let me respond on that.
Sure.
As we said, Australia is our lead market. We are already selling in New Zealand. We are already active in Japan. America is the key market then to leverage into growth. But of course, these are not the only markets looking for non-toxic alternatives. The trends are more and more countries around the world. There's restrictions put in place. These chemical herbicides, not just glyphosate, being banned. So Europe is a huge market for us, and we soon, with the funding that we will receive, we will start the registration process, because you need registrations. But of course, we're going in parallel into Canada and into Mexico, and these two markets for the US market are vital. In our 4-year studies that we conduct in toxicology, the impact in ecotoxicity, of course, we leverage our submissions into these markets significantly. So Mexico is on board. Jean-Marc said already and stated Brazil, there's Colombia. The opportunity is the world, but we will go about in a very, very focused way. But Mexico will be next, absolutely. I would like just to highlight, because there's a bit of communication going on in the webinar chat. So we talked a lot about regenerative agriculture, how we'll fit in, and it's amazing the summary that we got. But I just want to highlight again, you will see our product. I just got a message just by our EPA consultants through right now that we got approval to move forward in all those states, because our Firehawk bioherbicide has been approved as such by EPA just now.
Congratulations. How exciting is that?
Yeah. I'm at the moment in Bangkok at our factory. As I said, we will be setting up in the US for local supply. But for this kind of products, the end user markets, like for the home and garden markets, that's $1 billion markets. That has a huge demand with all this litigation going on and so on. So I'm here at the moment to manufacture large-scale container lots of these ready-to-use products to go into home and garden market. That EPA note that just came through will leverage us here into production. We will ship much faster. It's a market that waits. And Kathleen has developed Harvard University. We were up in Utah. Universities where young people really saying where they want to study, they will not study in places where the home and garden and parks are not maintained in a non-toxic way. So they're huge markets. That's the reason why we're raising money. As I said, this is a huge opportunity. We fit into mega trend. We have the highest performing product on the market. No one has taken the angle of a delivery technology making active ingredients, natural active ingredients, bioavailable. No one has done that. And it works. And we're market ready. And we're raising the 10 million to accelerate. We offer the opportunity to make really good money out of it. It's very, very attractive. But as I said, please consider you will have a measurable impact in a social and environmental way with this solution. And I would like to invite you to talk to us as a follow-up to have a conversation of how he can come on board and support us in our journey.
Great, thank you. Is there something we want to share about California being how massive it is in terms of agriculture in Iowa, for example?
Of course. See, you saw on the target markets, we're very selective where we go. The higher value crops, horticulture, vineyards, specialty crops is really the core business. We are already operating in 1,000-acre vineyards for the last 2 years. Feedback is product works as well in the growing season, as well as all the other chemical herbicides as it's established. California, therefore, and Florida, by the way, are key horticulture markets, key target markets. I've been to California 4 weeks ago. The whole horticulture market's moving regenerative because their soil is so down, and they're producing almond crops at the moment. They cannot export to Japan and Europe anymore because it's loaded with glyphosate, and the custom and duty officers will not allow it in. California is the crown of the jewel for our product. And this news that I just got, that our product now, the name is approved, will allow us to submit this week into California for approval, because that's the market we take. We have most experience in these spaces and will be a really huge success.
Is there an inflection point, pendulum swing, whatever you want to call it, where the huge agricultural companies, everybody knows who they are getting enough pressure from the consumer and the stores, Whole Foods, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, that they're going to have to adopt this sort of thing in lieu of just massive production demand? Are they going to feel the pressure? Because I imagine that unless they feel the pressure, they're just going to continue to do what they're doing, right?
If I may answer that just briefly, and realize that I'm under NDA, so I can't mention names, but I'll guarantee you, if you name any of the large agro-industrial companies, they have sought me and my team out over the past 2 years, wanting input. I spend the majority of my time now talking to CEOs, board of directors, heads of sustainability of all these large companies, because they want to know, how do they move down the regenerative path? How do they move their supply chains down the regenerative path? As Martin and Frank both said, there's a tidal wave coming very, very quickly. And I apologize, but I just can't mention names. But
yeah, no, don't need to apologize.
I talked to them all.
Yeah, I purposely didn't mention them, so this is recorded, so we don't want to get
Arthur, can I just make a comment?
Of course.
This is my third environmental technology startup business. And the first one, I changed the company Nestle, the biggest food producer in the world, over to bio-based packaging. That has been 10 years ago. So I'm very familiar with them, how to do it. So my experience has been there. They're all looking for, in line with what Gabe said, of practices they can improve. They're looking at all elements. The wonderful thing with our product is it's a drop-in product. It works. It works in the same kind of operation, in the same kind of machinery. It comes out at a very reasonable kind of cost structure. It's an easy switch. So therefore, they look at all aspects of sustainability, what they can do. But so is 2 universities. They have a whole sustainability program, and you score points. Ours, changing the parks and gardens like Harvard did over to non-toxic weed control, is an easy one. So that comes off the rank first because it's easy, it's cost effective, and it just works. So we are drop-in product, and that will make that kind of adoption much easier, not just in food, but in general practices. And that's the reason why the business will take off. You saw the sales numbers, but that equals just 0.6% of our target markets. Opportunity is much bigger, and mega trend that happens.
Yep.
Arthur, could I just add as well to what Gabe and Frank have said? One of the big reasons for us moving into regenerative 5 years ago, because we came into this with a conventional mindset, was follow the money. At the end of the day, and I say this to every farmer that I present actually, and I know Gabe says the same thing at the end of every major training school that he does. I ask people out in the audience who are farmers, what are you in business to achieve? And I get a smorgasbord of answers, from growing crops to raising livestock to want to make a difference for the environment. And I go, no, listen to my question. What are you in business to achieve? To make a profit. If you don't make a profit, you're not in business. We have to give the farmers the tools in order to be able to do that, because farmers are suffering. Half of farmers in this country have been in debt for at least 10 years. Multi-billions worth of debt, and farms are going to go out of business and will be taken over either by the big conglomerates or they'll be sold off for development. So there's an urgency timeline to what we're achieving here. So when Greg and I looked at this market in the early stages, and regenerative specifically, the adage that was through both our minds was follow the money. So we didn't just look at the big food companies, global food companies, or the big food retailers, or where the consumers were going. You've heard of Bayer. Bayer bought Monsanto, who have got the biggest herbicide. I'm not going to say nasty things about them or negative things about them. They created Roundup. They have now not only paid $63 billion for Monsanto, they've already paid $10 billion in lawsuits, and they've probably got another 10 coming. Probably one of the worst business decisions ever. If you type Bayer and regenerative agriculture into Google after this meeting, what comes up might surprise you. This is the biggest chemical, synthetic, toxic herbicide company on the planet. And I'm reading it in front of me now. It says, our vision for the future of farming, scaling regenerative agriculture. What these guys are providing is a bio alternative to what these guys will probably move into in the next 3 years. They're already there. So why put money into the coffers of these people who've caused all these issues when we've already got an alternative now?
So to add to the techno-economics of what you're talking about, Martin, for the farmers, they, I've been in the green space, quote unquote, for 20 years. You can't rely on people to pay extra to be green. That's just not really going to happen. It has to make economic sense. It has to make economic sense for them. And there has to be a payback, in a reasonable time if they're making an investment. And they have to have access, if they have to make an investment, to transition, they have to have access to capital that doesn't cost them an arm and a leg, right? And so I think Contact Organics checks a lot of those boxes. And what's really interesting, we haven't talked a lot about it on this call yet, and I'll ask Gabe for his input here, but there's two components. And Gabe, a lot of your photos, the before and after, the side-by-side comparison of regen and non-regen farms are really, photos, what is it? Speak 1,000 words, right? Contact Organics enables, and again, I'll refer you to our soil study analysis, but enables a better sequestration of carbon. And over time, that's going to be measurable easily with a lot of products coming to market around the world, and you're going to earn money for that. But the biggest thing, and we're seeing it all around the Southwest, right, Gabe? You tell us, access to fresh water. I mean, if you have a solution that enables a better retention of water, which means you use and need less water for irrigation, I mean, that's got to be worth something, and that's not priced into any of the techno-economics or the margins of Contact Organics. I'll pass it to you, Gabe, to comment further.
Yeah. First, just adding a little bit to what Martin said. Martin's absolutely correct. How did our firm move from 0 acres to over 34 million in 6 years? Well, the answer is simple. You got to show them a profit. Okay. This gets exactly what Jean-Marc just said. Okay. The difference of one of the major differences with this is that it actually enhances soil biology. So it helps proliferate that biology. Now, that's the very biology that helps build soil aggregates, increases water infiltration, builds carbon levels, which then are able to act like a sponge giving you resilience in your cropping system, and then the very same biology that drive those phytonutrient compounds, thus improving nutrient density. It is almost too good to be true, you know, except I've used it and it is that good.
Imagine that. We're gonna
When
try
you have-
something here for a
Gabe,
second.
and Gabe, I remember a couple of photos or videos you posted. When you have a dirt field versus a soil field that had chemical herbicides on it, and you get big rainfall, what happens to it? Huge runoffs. Where'd all those chemical runoffs in that rainfall runoff go? Into streams, rivers, and the ocean. So it's just the exact opposite of everything we should be doing, essentially.
We're gonna try something different here. We'll let Howard talk. I'm not sure this is gonna work, so hang on. Howard, can you hear us? You want to turn your mic on?
Can you hear me?
I can. Please.
I'm
Welcome.
not using the camera because I have better reception with using just audio.
Sure.
I got
So
started.
Howard is the managing director of our business in the US.
Great.
I started down the alternative farming route on our farm in Northwest Iowa in 1989. Of course, today it's referred to as regenerative. I have been blessed to work with some of the top scientists and researchers from around the world on the ill effects of GMOs and glyphosate and other chemicals. I continue to be in the loop on a host of problems that continue to surface, and I'm going to reference one specific to Canada after I give you a brief what's to come statement on the microbiome effects of our super concentrate version of the Firehawk. We have always had the first question I asked the company in 2015 in October when I started communicating with them was, how does it affect the soil? They didn't know the answer to that question, and they told me so, which was the honest thing to say. Once I started the US division of the company, I reached out to one of my scientist friends, Dr. Bob Kramer, who was still working for USDA as an ag research scientist at that time. Told him that if the opportunity ever presented itself to do a comparative study with our product to Roundup, that I'd be interested so that we could look at the effect on the microbiome of the soil. Long story short, that first generation product was a 2-year study, and it proved to have a very positive effect compared both to glyphosate and the control or no treatment whatsoever. Fast forward to what I was calling an anomaly and what Dr. Huber refers to as a phenomenon. And Dr. Huber, for those who are not recognize his name, is recognized around the world for his expertise in mineral disease and plant nutrition and microbiology. The man's been there and done it in every way, shape, and form whatsoever. And I've been blessed to work with him since December of 2009. In fact, I was in Canada with him last week, which I'll share that with you shortly. But because of the strong desire for understanding the new formulation and its effect on the microbiome of the soil, I searched out and was able to find a site in southern Kansas where we did a small plot replicated trial with an untreated check, where we terminated a cover crop using just a tarp and the Firehawk concentrate and Firehawk super concentrate. We sent those samples to the Rhizome Rise Bio Lab in North Carolina, which is not too far from where Martin is at. And I'm waiting on the presentation of the white paper that the PhD is going to write on the results of that study, and also incorporate some information about glyphosate, although we did not use glyphosate in this preliminary trial because the lady that did the trial for us, a very young, extremely talented and energetic young lady in research and regenerative farming by the name of Shelby Beyer, she didn't want anything to do with Roundup on her property. Long story short, the PhD at the lab could not sit still in his seat as he walked us through the explanation of the results of that trial, measuring the effect of our product on the microbiome of the soil. when you looked at the numbers, some were up, some were down, and having been a student of the soil since 1989, there are a lot of different microorganisms that I was seeing that I heard and recognized the name, but didn't know specifically their function. Long story short, the reason he couldn't sit still in his chair was, he says, I have looked at herbicides' effect on the microbiome of the soil for many, many years. And he said, even supposed organic herbicides typically have an adverse effect on the microbiome of the soil. There were the numbers that went up were the nitrogen fixing components. The numbers went down were the ones that would cause the nitrogen to escape from the soil. And the guy was literally totally excited. Once we have the white paper on that, I will most certainly circulate that. Now I'm going to jump up to the meeting we did in Canada last week. I was asked to go up there and present on the ill effects of GMOs and glyphosate. I did a tag team effort with Dr. Huber, the veterinary we worked with and who coordinated this meeting. It was approximately 150 farmers and ranchers and members from the vet school university in Calgary, as well as regulatory officials. And Dr. Dupp has been looking out and documenting the effects of glyphosate in the feedstuffs and the subsequent harm they've been causing to livestock for many, many years. The first case we worked with him on, one of his clients lost 29 head of 850-pound feeder cattle because of glyphosate residue in the flax straw that was sprayed pre-harvest desiccation with Roundup, and they developed acute botulism and died on the spot from the glyphosate residue. The regulatory agencies have done a flip-flop of sorts to saying, well, this isn't a problem, it can't be a problem, it doesn't exist, to, oh, wait a minute, you can't sell that grain because it has an illegal level of glyphosate residue in it. And we were given a copy of a grain sales agreement that one particular grain company has started implementing up there. And it states that the farmer will certify they haven't sprayed this. There's 5 or 6 different chemicals that they haven't been applied to this crop. And they are certifying there is no glyphosate residue in the grain. There's probably not a handful of farmers in the country of Canada that can meet that requirement. And it's not going to stay confined to Canada. It's going to be a widespread problem. And thankfully, with the connections and the network that I'm blessed to be involved with, we are on the front edge of the technology to fully and completely remediate glyphosate residues from the soil. That's not a component of our company at this point in time, but I'm telling you, we are on the front of that knowledge worldwide. Thank you.
Howard, thanks for jumping in. I'm glad that all worked out. Super interesting. So we're running overtime, and I'm glad we captured on this and it's recorded because it'll be valuable to share with many others. Frank, Jean-Marc, do you want to wrap it up? And then we'll make sure we do all the follow-up.
Yeah, quickly, and I think I stated beforehand already, so I just want to wrap it up briefly. You heard from all sides, and we're talking about home and garden markets, public amenities, municipalities, specialty kind of agriculture markets, all have a huge demand for this kind of product. We can offer a drop-in solution that works. I just told you we got another step approval that will accelerate us now into the market. Containers are shipped, the product is ready to go. We're market ready, will accelerate the business. So you have the opportunity as investors to participate in that capital raise. Please, let's have a follow-up if you're interested. There's a significant opportunity here to make a lot of money, but at the same time, very importantly, to really have a measurable contribution to the issues we have in society, in the environment, on biodiversity, and can really, through coming on board with us, can accelerate solutions that's available now. But we need the funding to people on the ground to deliver to the market, and that's what you can be part of it. Thank you very much. Arthur, thank you very much for inviting us to the webinar. Gabe, Martin, Jean-Marc, Howard, thank you for participating. But we are real and we're moving forward. Be part of the journey. Thank you.
For real. Thank you. Jean-Marc, you want to say something or?
I was just going to say, as a follow-up for those that are interested, we have a data room. You can sign an NDA and access that. We can supply you with a lot of data on the studies. The capital raise is 10 million equity into the company at roughly 30 million pre. So that gives you about a 40 million valuation. Just to think about it, I think it's a great risk-adjusted return in this space with the kind of margins we have. If we hit anywhere close to a 40% margin on $100 million, that's 40 million of EBITDA within 3 to 5 years. You put a 5 to 10x multiple on that, you're going from a 40 million valuation to a 200 to 300 million valuation if the company executes as we believe we can. So I think it's an excellent risk-adjusted return. The wins are behind our sales. The demand is there, and all the major constituents involved in the supply chain of herbicides into the 7 different market segments all are highly motivated to adopt this solution.
Great. Thanks so much. And we'll get good food as a result.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So thank you, Martin, Gabe. Thank you, Frank, Jean-Marc. Super appreciate you doing this for the community. And as I always say, thank you, everybody, for joining us and sharing with us the only thing you can't make more of, and that's your time. Until next time, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much.